Welcome to the Runna Podcast. I'm Coach Anya, an international marathon runner.
And I'm Coach Ben, and one of the co-founders of Runna.
Each week we'll be deep diving into the world of running, speaking to some inspiring individuals about their running journeys.
Runna is the #1 rated running coaching service worldwide. We help hundreds of thousands of people all over the world train for any running goal. And if you want to try out Runna for free, you can try it out using the code Runna Podcast, all one word, to get 2 weeks of free access to the Runna app.
Today on the podcast we have Imo Boddy, who is an amazing ultra runner and currently the world record holder for the youngest ever female to run the length of the UK. She's about to take on her next world record attempt in just 2 weeks' time. She's an incredible athlete with an amazing mindset.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Imo. Thank you so much for coming on. Would love to start with what got you started with your fitness or your running journey?
So fitness-wise, I've always been very sporty, always loved sport. When I was in my last year at school, I was inspired by a lady who came to school and she had done the Arch to Arc. So you run from London to Dover, swim the English Channel and cycle from Calais to Paris. And every year at school, we had an inspirational lady or man who came to do a talk. She came to do it to us. And I wanted to do the Arch to Arc, and at the age of 17, obviously that wasn't viable. So we created a smaller scale challenge when I was at school called the Body Challenge, hence my surname. And I ran a marathon, swam 10k in Lake Windermere, being in Lake District, and then cycled back from Lake Windermere to Sedbergh, which is 30 miles. So that was my first challenge. And then, moved to London in 2020. And I think London, we all know, is a big fitness scene, and we're all kind of small fish in a big pond, so chose running, and that's when I met Ben and met Josh.
Yeah, so you've kind of done this amazing challenge. You've come to London. You're working as a PT at One London, which is where Joshua Patterson trained, and I was working with Josh, helping him towards his wonderful and wacky challenges. Which I guess inspired you to think of yours, which is when you reached out to me. And what were you wanting to do?
Yeah, I literally remember Josh was walking on the treadmill, and I must have been with a client or front of house. I went up to Josh, and I can remember him being a main Chelsea, and I remember recognising him being like, "Hey Josh, you do cool challenges. I really want to do something. What should I do?" And he was like, "Yeah, you've got to find your niche." And so and then he gave me your comms and did 7 marathons in 7 days.
Yeah, so I think you hadn't done that much running from 17. Were you around 20 then?
Yeah, 20. Yeah, 20.
Yeah, so Imo's 20, hasn't done much running, and comes to me and says, "I want to run 7 marathons in 7 days." And I think you had about 6 months before you wanted to do it. Was that about right?
I done London Marathon once, and that was it.
Yeah.
And obviously my challenge prior to that.
Yeah, so we kind of got started, didn't we? And gradually built up all of your running over the next number of months. You would come and see me once a week in Richmond Park. And
twice a week though.
Yeah,
all my hard sessions with you, and then easier runs by myself. Actually, we used to do everything, didn't we?
Yeah.
Whether it was a hard run or an easy run.
And so then that took us to, I feel like it was the summertime when you went and started out with 7 marathons, 7 days. It wasn't doing a hugely organised thing you kind of started out and ran from your flat, I think, on day 1 and different days. I think I joined you on day 2 and 5. Yeah. How did that go? How did running 7 marathons in 7 days go?
I actually think to date that is still one of my hardest challenges. I think it was because it was so new to me, and I think running wasn't, it sounds ridiculous, but running wasn't cool then. And I think running now is very cool, whereas running then you kind of ran because you loved running. Not that people don't love running now, but it wasn't such a fashion. And I think it was tough because I was a bit more unknown. Obviously I had the support from you, but I think it was finding my feet with the whole endurance world and balancing it. And so it's still one of my hardest challenges.
And you're obviously having to train like a madwoman to do this amazing challenge while working at the crack of dawn, opening up the gym at 5 a.m, going and running during middle of the day super long run, and then smashing out big training weeks. How did you find kind of balancing all of that training while maybe you haven't also got the support of brands and maybe got the support in all these different ways? How did you find it?
Yeah, tough. I remember when I did my first 100k week. I think you'd actually program a 98k week. And I got to the end of the set like on Sunday, and I was like, I've got to do an extra 2K. It's my first ever 100K week. And yeah, I mean, it was tough, and I think it's building that base. And like we're all very lucky to have a good base now, aren't we? So actually building onto big weeks is a lot easier, but actually building from zero to that big base was difficult. So it was difficult, yeah. And managing and trying to eat well, but sat behind like a front of house desk, and managing all that was far more difficult than I am lucky enough to be now.
And so I remember, we're setting off, kind of doing marathons back to back. Do any stand out? I can remember a particular moment that I would love to share, but how did you find it? What were the highs and lows of the challenge?
Any stand out? I remember one, you always talk about it, but I don't remember it so poignantly. But you mentioned the other day when we were in Bushy Park and my grandparents were there. And you were like, apparently I was so unfazed, and I just kind of...
So I think this was marathon number 5, and I think you've had friends and people supporting you on each day. And I was running with Imo on day 5, and we're running through Bushy Park, and it's maybe like 30k in, and her grandparents have travelled down from the north, and I stood in the middle of Bushy Park with like a table with snacks and drinks, and Imo is so in the zone, literally collects the drinks, collects the snacks. Thanks, Granny, and then just like running off, and I'm there like crying a little bit of like how lovely it is that she's had like the whole family support her in this way, and like I remember just saying to you like 200 meters later, I was like, how are you? Are you just so in the zone?
Yeah, I think I actually shared something on Instagram the other day. I've always been someone that like kind of team sport wise wanted to like represent England in some capacity. I've kind of had opportunities in the past with netball and hockey, and then I've like turned them down for numerous reasons. I think challenges for me now is kind of my way of like pushing myself and seeing where I can go with it. So I think like even my 7-7, my first one essentially, that was just like I remember I wanted to do the more sub 4 hours, and that's what I did, and it was like goal.
And to think Imo did that at 21 is presumably 21 at this point, right?
Yeah, well, 21.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely remarkable. And anyway, so you complete this challenge. So you have all of your friends cheering you on in Battersea Park, running your last one there. What do you go on to do next? What does the fire in your belly go on to push you to do?
Well, I remember calling you. I remember we stood outside one London. I was on shift, and I called you, and I was like, what do you think about the idea of me running the length of the UK? I was like, the record at the moment, youngest female is 23. I'll be 22 if I did it whenever next year. I think I must have done it the following year. And you're like, I think it's in reach. Yeah, just like you were the biggest believer. I was like, we've got to convince my parents, convince mum and dad, got to call with them. And then in 2022 I became the youngest female to ever run the length of the UK. It's insane.
And what does running the length of the UK entail? So this is how many days?
22 days. So
and how far?
60k a day for 22 days. So started John and Groats, top of Scotland, finished in Land's End, England.
Which is actually the harder way to run the UK, isn't it?
Well, essentially, yeah. But I quite like the element of like finishing in England, finishing in Cornwall, finishing the sun, finishing by the beach. Yeah. John and Groats, don't know if you guys have been, but it's a bit of a dead hole.
But you're saying that your 7 marathons, part of that was actually more challenging than running the length of the UK.
I think all in all, obviously joggle was. But I think mentally at the time, the 7s, like I still think about the 7 being harder because I was so much, like I had no base. I was just like went from, and I had no idea what like the multi-day challenges were like. Joggle, there was like 2 days. I thought I had a stress fracture, and I walked for one of the 60k on one day, which was just like brutal. And then my body kind of recovered. But yeah, it was 7 like it's very poignant to me. I think maybe I say it's harder because it was so poignant. But yeah.
And so to do 22 days of running 60k, what does that entail? Are you on the road? Are you in a camper van? How are you doing things logistically between the runs?
So camper van, all road. I think there was about 10 kilometres in Scotland, which we did on the trail. But other than that, it was basically A roads. The A9, which is obviously a very known Scottish A road. And then the A30 in Cornwall, which is also a very busy holiday traffic-y road. So yeah, they're pretty mind-numbing A roads, but I think a lot of people talk about joggle now. I think it's a very like known challenge, and actually people are like, I'm just gonna run the length of the UK, and it's like there's so much more to consider than just like also the safety. And I think I was very lucky. I felt very safe the whole time, but you're on the white line and the verge in between that, running all the A roads.
And so I guess kind of it just seems like this unimaginable thing to go on to do, I guess, from where you started. But like, what did it feel like in the lows? Like you said, there were a few days where you were struggling and you had to walk. How did it kind of feel on day one? And when did those days come about? And talk us through the real roller coaster of the challenge.
Day one was obviously a great day. I remember day two, I had one of my best friends with me. She played the song Proud from Heather Small. And we like played that on repeat throughout the whole. I remember day two, I started crying because I was so proud of myself to getting to day two, and that was like the classic song. Yeah, day five, I think it was. That's when I thought I had a stress fracture. I tried to walk like the last 5K every day, just otherwise my body would be in overdrive and I wouldn't be able to sleep. I would have too many hot sweats and whatever. But yeah, it was pretty brutal. It was pretty brutal.
Weren't you so delusional by the end that you thought Heather Small was turning up?
No.
Well, I think I'd like convinced myself. Like I listened to her so much. I'd listened to her so much, and I think someone must have said. I think someone was trying to slow me down on the last day because my sister was coming to surprise me, and so we had to like slow down to make sure that she had arrived in time because she was getting into Cornwall quite late, and I was just so convinced that she was going to turn up. I think Hannah.
So were you really disappointed to see your sister because she wasn't this amazing musician?
No, obviously I was pleased, but I think it was Hannah, one of our good friends, Hannah. She had been like, she's very good at kind of going along with something, and I was so convinced that she was going to.
Wow. So kind of days 5 and 6 are really, really tough. Did it ever get easier? Did you kind of get into the flow and realize, might sound silly, but you did 60K yesterday, you could do 60K tomorrow? Or like, how did it progress after these really hard days?
From like day 8, it was like, I mean, the body is incredible how it can adapt. And actually, I was so broke. And I don't believe it. And I think anyone that, I mean, if you haven't done these challenges, which not many people have, you kind of couldn't imagine your body breaking down and recovering. But I mean, you do. So from like day 8, maybe it was, I can't remember which day it was, but from whatever day I recovered, and yeah.
And did you ever question that you wouldn't finish?
No.
So do you think that's your superpower, the confidence in yourself to be able to do these things when you stand on the start line?
Yeah, I think I have got a very strong mindset. I'd like to think I've got a very strong mindset. Yeah, I also think it's an element of not only having a strong mindset, but in these team challenges, because actually doing these challenges are a team effort. I would never claim these challenges to be like a sole effort. I mean, I couldn't do it without a support team. And I think actually you don't want to let your team down. So there's an element of like the stubbornness and mental fortitude and mental strength and whatever, but actually there's also an element of I don't want to let my team down. So kind of committed, and you grind it out because you've got to grind it out.
And it's something that I always encourage like clients to do, which is if someone wants to go and train for a marathon or train for a 10K, to go and tell their husband, tell their wife, tell their friends, put it on their Instagram or their Strava, because we all struggle with motivation. Yeah. And actually, obviously what you're doing, you've got all these people that are spending 22 days with you on the road to get you from one end of the country to the other. So they're keeping you accountable. For people doing normal challenges, whether it's a 10K half marathon, tell your friends that you're doing it, so that way you have to turn up and train when it's raining in the morning so that you can get round and finish.
Yeah, no, totally. I think support network and telling people and is one of the biggest.
That's so interesting you say it's like a team event still, because I was going to say normal people start, small, like the 5Ks and work their way up. You threw yourself straight into like ultras and really long distance challenges. So much of that in my head is like training alone, running alone. I know you said you've got a team, but like I know you have done a few marathons now, but I do marathons because I love the support of the crowds. So many of your things, you don't have people lining the streets. Do you think you thrive in those situations?
I prefer like a tight knit. I like a community, like a family, like not only my family, like an extended family, rather than even London Marathon the other week. I didn't race it as such. I ran it, but I felt quite awkward when you're being not awkward, but I'm kind of like, I like it, but I don't like that kind of like cheering. I'm quite like, I would say I'm an extrovert. I definitely am an extrovert, but I think actually when it comes to performance, yeah, I suppose I do just quite like to just have my little community and just like
You
grind
want
it
to
out.
do it
And
for the people super close to you,
Yeah.
and you're not too worried
Yeah.
about the
No.
random people
No.
lining the streets.
No. And just kind of for myself, like I don't really listen to music very often when I run. I'll listen to like a good podcast if I know it's going to be a nice, engaging, chatty podcast, and I kind of have a conversation, listen to a conversation. But I'm quite like say I'm an ext. That's quite, you know what? I never really thought about that. Say I'm an extrovert. I definitely am the kind of person that just does it kind of for myself.
And so, almost coming back to the challenge, so we're on the road. What does the time outside of running look like? Because obviously, some days I don't know how long you're running for on doing the longest and on the shortest days, but what do you do between them? Are you sleeping the meter that you finish, or are you driving somewhere to sleep? What are you doing to eat? What does all of the other bits around the challenge look like?
So sleep for me is such a big factor. I mean, obviously sleep is such a factor for anyone, but I'm like a superhero when it comes to sleep. I'm like the queen of sleep. I love sleeping. I can sleep anywhere. So as soon as I finish a run, I literally will sleep. So joggle, I got in the camper and slept. And then we used to actually, because we were doing 60k a day and we kind of had a stopping point each day, we'd stay at either friends or hotels, or we kind of wherever. So I'd always been the camper van, but my crew would be in a location, in accommodation. So we'd sleep, get back, have a big meal. Also, I think the beauty of doing these challenges, you can obviously eat anything. So you kind of eat on,
And when you say you eat anything, you mean you're burning so many calories,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what you're eating.
yeah, whether it's yeah, and I eat real food because I'm not moving at such a pace.
So would you be thinking about what you're craving that day and then sending
Oh my
dad
God,
or
we
team ahead
literally-
to
yeah,
go and
we
buy the
literally-
food, or how does it look?
We literally have we had a WhatsApp group, and for my next challenge we'll have the same, and it's literally like, depending on the craving, it's like, she's craving salami, she's craving a sausage roll, she's craving sushi, and then they'd call forward pizza. I remember there was one, we were on Scafell, and it was absolutely chucking it down rain, like chucking it down, and I got into the camper after, like, we'd do 10k checkpoints usually throughout the day, and I got to where we were on top of Scafell, and Mum thought I was going to be like in a foul mood, but actually we kind of got past, and it's so wet, you get past being angry and you get past hating it, and actually you then just kind of start loving it. That was like us, and we had a cup of tea, pizza. That was like one of my biggest memories, and then off I went again.
Wow. And so to make sure you're starting in the right place, what did you do? Did you get a bit of chalk and write it on the floor and use that as a start line, or how do you know where to drive back to start the next day?
Well, actually, slightly to Chris, who does logistics for the challenges, dismay, we had this big white paint. Dad was literally marking the roads. And actually, Chris, who does logistics, did a challenge last year, a guy that did joggle, and the white lines are still there a year later.
No way. So did he use the same lines, or you mean he ran over them?
I think he ran over them.
Wow, that's amazing. So I guess that's what you've done today, and you went on to become the youngest woman of all time to run the length of the country, which is simply amazing. I guess only a year and a half, 2 years into your running journey. What's next? We've got something very exciting 2 weeks away, which probably when you're listening to this now, hopefully you can go and check on Imo's Instagram and Strava that she's gone and done it. But what are you working towards?
So I'm working towards, I want to be the fastest person to have run and summited the national 3 peaks. So Snowdon, Scafell and Ben Nevis.
And so when you say that to do it the fastest, that's running between them?
Yeah. So it's 700 kilometres, about 700 kilometres and 10,000 metres of elevation.
And how many days do you have to beat?
The record is 7 days, 31 minutes.
So that's 100k a day.
Yeah, I think day one, we've actually got a bit of an action plan. I think day one is, so there's quite a big taboo about the whole thing. I suppose I can say it because hopefully I will have done it. So it's a record to be broken again. There's a loch in Scotland called Loch Lomond. A lot of people there's one guy that's tried it, who I think most people that tried it actually have done it going along the West Highland Way. So it's trail and a bit more undulating. And obviously trail is more impacting on the body, more fatiguing, and also being undulating, also more fatiguing. And then there's the A road going around Loch Lomond, but because the A road is the only A road that kind of goes to Fort William and surrounding areas, it's quite a busy A road. So, but we haven't shared it, but we are doing the A road. So we need to get to basically a certain point in Loch Lomond to start that busy, dangerous point at 2 a.m. on the day one. So I think it's about 125k we need to cover on day one to get to that 2 a.m. point, hopefully.
And so then it's kind of roughly just under 100k a day from there on after.
Oh my God. So how's your training looking for this?
So I've done 2 simulation weeks, so kind of simulating the challenge, but on a small scale. I did about just under 300 kilometers for one of them, and then just over 200 for the other. Kind of having flat one day, elevation one day, flat one day. And then just kind of fairly high mileage, but very easy miles. And yeah, that's kind of been it. It's the sim weeks that have been the kind of killers, but equally because I've been lucky enough to kind of go back to the peaks and train on them and practice them and get to know them, it's been a bit more interesting than obviously running around.
The weather looked awful for all of those sims.
The house. I feel like hopefully third time lucky we're going to be blessed with some good weather. Bloody hope so anyway.
And I guess at the same time, so now you're in an amazing position, having shared the previous challenges you've done on social media. You're now a sponsored athlete.
Yes, I work with Solomon. So I'm very lucky to have them supporting me. And then NARC, which is my nutrition sponsor, which is another epic nutrition sponsor. It's a bit more whole foody and a bit more natural as such, rather than kind of gels and stuff, which I'm not going to hopefully need.
And so with the challenge, have you got a camper van? Are you sleeping where you're finishing? What are you doing? Like, what does all of those bits that sit around this ridiculous challenge of 700k over 7 days and crazy mountains as well?
So we've got a camper van again. This one's going to be, I think, a slightly less luxury in the sense of it will be less luxury in the sense that we're not going to have places to stay each night. It's going to be slightly more kind of on the go. Mum and dad, part of my crew again, who are my biggest supports. And then, we've got photographer, and then logistics, and then a physio.
Epic. Well, huge good luck. And we can't wait to see how you get on. And huge good luck from all of us. And it seems absolutely crazy thinking about what you're about to go and do, knowing where you were on day one when you got started. But it's amazing to see where you've got to, and can only imagine what you'll do in 5 years from now as well.
Oh, thank you.
Today's top tip is around hill running. Hill training is one of our harder sessions of the week, and it involves running hard uphill and then using the downhill to recover. They sound tough, but they come with a host of benefits. Hill running improves speed, efficiency, strength, and is great for us technically. Driving uphill helps us improve our stride length, cadence, and running form.
Amazing. Shall we move on to some silly questions?
Absolutely.
Amazing. So I have a few would you rathers for you, which we can have a little bit of a chat about. First one. Would you rather start your run with the uphill and end on the downhill, or start with the downhill and end on the uphill?
Start with the uphill and end on the downhill, obviously.
Yes, I'm the same. You want to end on a high, right? And also, if you know you've got the hill to come, you almost can't enjoy the downhill as much because you've got this really hard bit ahead of you. If you've done the hard bit, then you can enjoy the fun bit.
I get that. But then London Marathon is downhill for the first bit, and then you can warm up into it, get into it, and then I pick up the pace, and then I
it catches a lot of people out, doesn't it, London Marathon? I think we know that.
It's also not quite the same because it's a very, very gentle downhill, if anything.
I was thinking a big steep mountain and then coming down that mountain after the nice.
Yeah, but people aim to get to the top. They don't aim to get to the bottom. People climb a mountain.
Yeah, but they don't run down the mountain to then run up the mountain. You'd actually start at the bottom of the mountain, run up the mountain, then probably run back down to where you started.
Yeah.
Right. So we're on the uphill first.
Yeah. Okay. All of your gels are out of date forever, or you're never allowed caffeine again.
All my gels are out of date forever. I don't do much caffeine.
So surely you would rather then.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I'd rather. Wait. What? Say that again.
Would you rather every gel you ever have forever is out of date?
Yeah.
Or you never have caffeine?
Oh, I'd rather not have caffeine.
Okay. I thought you were a big coffee drinker, but maybe
I
that's
don't
because
drink coffee.
Oh, we were at a running festival and you were definitely drinking.
No, I don't drink coffee. Really? I used to have a tiny bit, but I don't drink it.
I don't think Imo needs any more energy.
I drink a lot of Yorkshire tea.
What about you, Annie? What are you going for?
I need coffee.
I need it. I'll have out of date.
And you're rotten gels.
Not rotten, but just a little bit out of date. Most of the things I eat are out of date. Like,
Is that the tip to being the fast
I'm
food
really
in
bad
London?
at throwing away any food. I'll eat food off the floor.
Well, we learn something new every day.
You definitely need caffeine.
I do like caffeine, but sometimes I'll go for like a few weeks without caffeine to prove that I don't need caffeine, and then reset my use of caffeine to then mean that, and then slowly drink more and more caffeine over time until I'm drinking too much caffeine and then reset again. So I think I can do it. That I think I'm going caffeine free.
Okay, amazing. Last one. Would you rather run into a 40-mile-per-hour headwind for a mile or up a hill for a mile with like a 10% gradient?
Up a hill for a mile with a 10% gradient.
I'm doing a headwind.
I'm doing headwind.
I actually...
You're about to take on some hills, so we should hope that you do like hills.
I really like hills now. I mean, obviously I do. Not obviously I do, but I've obviously trained. But like, I mean, obviously if you train for something, you do it. But I really like hills now.
It must be really weird training for like a hilly ultra race when you live like in southwest London where we have Battersea Park.
I mean, it is. I spend a lot of time on the treadmill. I went to treadmill this morning.
And it's pretty hilly at home.
Yeah, exactly. And also, to be honest, I actually haven't been in London much this year because I have been training out and about. Yeah,
Right.
I'm hill running. I'm doing the hills.
Right, well, we're going to move on to tell you about an embarrassing story that one of our runners have sent in. So if you want to send in a funny or embarrassing running story, send them to podcast@runner.com to feature in one of our future episodes. And while Anya is reading out this week's story, you can think of your most embarrassing story to share with us afterwards.
Okay. I was running a 5K and it had a volunteer set up to wave cars away from the race. He didn't understand that the runners were supposed to go straight and I was in the front. He waved me to make a turn. I ended up cutting the course by about 400 metres and obviously finished way ahead. I had no clue until I saw that my time was faster by over a minute. I then had to shamelessly tell everybody that I haven't in fact won.
Oh, no, that's so sad. So someone's about to win a race. The marshal's got it wrong, and then they've had to like, do you mean resign from the race?
Yeah, but imagine like celebrating and then like, to be fair, I've run a race in Battersea Park before and I could have sworn I was in the lead and I got to the finish and there was another girl already there and I was like, what? And I was like, I just took it like on my chin and I was like, okay, I didn't win. And she'd done a lap less.
Oh, well, so then you didn't get to
So
celebrate.
she had to hand the medal to me and I felt so bad for her.
Yeah, but
She
you
thought
also then
she'd
didn't
won.
get. You also didn't get to enjoy the sensations of winning either.
No, I didn't.
Oh, I feel sorry for this person. I don't feel. Oh, for them, especially because they probably.
Embarrassing. That's the volunteers' fault. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate the volunteer writes in and says I'm really embarrassed because I ruined this lovely.
Oh, this was the Runna Podcast, and
Right, so Imo, what's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you on your running journey?
embarrassing thing that's happened with my own journey. I'll be honest, my stomach and my bowels are quite embarrassing. I actually don't find it embarrassing. I think I've normalised it. And so I actually don't find it that embarrassing. Maybe it should be more embarrassing. I have quite a lot of stomach issues on my runs. Probably shouldn't go into too much detail on them.
Trips to the toilet.
But I've had a lot of trips to the toilet. And actually, a lot of trips. Not to the toilet.
You know, I actually, now that you're reminding me of one of them, which I think I can share, which Imo and I were doing training probably for the 7 rounds in 7 days, and Imo needed number 2, and I think she squatted down to do number 2 and do an am waiting up the path, and then she comes over covered in mud, and she fell over while doing her squat, and was covered in mud, which may well have covered up any other mess, but she literally fell over on herself while doing it.
Covered in mud, I'm covered in poop.
Okay, so that was a lovely rest of the session.
I've kind of had the same story with them in Wales.
Gosh, so you basically.
But I have normalised it, so actually, I don't find it that embarrassing.
I think we all have as runners.
Yeah, no, I've been to the loo lots of times, but I haven't fallen over while going to the loo, I take it. But anyway, no, thank you for sharing. Sharing, caring.
Yeah.
The bit we like to leave all of our listeners with is our final question. So for this, imagine you're on the start line of your next marathon, or the start line, no, not the start line, the start line of your next marathon. You're completely naked, and you can bring 3 things, and 3 things only. What are the 3 things you're bringing for your next marathon?
Can I put clothes? Can clothes be an option?
But they would use up your 3 items.
I haven't got very big boobs, so I wouldn't be just about a sports bra or a top. I think I'd wear shorts, socks, and some shoes.
Nice. No gels, no watch, no sunglasses.
No watch. I know it's a marathon, so I don't really.
You get the chip time.
Yeah, exactly. Put that on Strava. We can always screenshot it, add it, manually add it. Yeah, gels. I'll have a big breakfast, but now I haven't got my gels.
You're an ultra runner, you can handle a marathon.
Exactly. Yeah.
So socks.
Yeah.
Just because you're a princess, don't damage the toes.
Yeah. I think my feet are more important. Actually, topless.
So shorts. You don't fancy like a leotard or something. You just want to get out the goods.
You give me the opportunities then.
So you're sticking with your shorts.
Yeah. Imagine if I had just gone opening sunglasses, cut and a phone to block myself. Yeah, I'd be topless in my shorts and my trainers.
Very nice.
Amazing.
Well, good luck. But anyway, huge good luck for the amazing challenge. And for when this podcast comes out, you finish the challenge. Where can people go and find what you've just been up to?
You can follow me on Instagram at Imo Boddy with 2 Ds, not the one.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for joining the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Runner. If you want to train for any running goal, please download the app, and don't forget you can use the code Runna Podcast for a 2-week free trial.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, follow, do all of that nonsense, and we'll be back here next week. And if you want to be featured, send us your embarrassing running story. Either send us a voice note on Instagram or send us an email to podcast@runner.com so that we can have a good laugh at your expense in Runner HQ and share it on one of the next episodes.